The Georgia Technology Summit, March 25th, 2015. Disruptive Innovations, the power to inspire. Come celebrate all that our industry has accomplished and Georgia's visionary technology leadership for the future. It's a one-of-a-kind gathering that brings together our industry's best and brightest to share the insights of the nation's top authorities and advanced thought leaders. Greetings, everyone, and a special welcome from the Technology Association of Georgia. It's Tuesday, January 13, 2015, and this is Tech Talk. Your host for today's exclusive preview of the upcoming 2015 Summit, Tino Mantella, TAG President and CEO. Don't miss the nationally recognized tech industry leaders at this year's featured keynote speakers that include one of the founders and top executives of the automotive industry revolutionary disruptive innovation, the Tesla, and more. On this edition of Tech Talk, Tino speaks with GTS special guest speaker Hal Gregersen. Continuing to enrich this year's summit theme of disruptive innovation, the power to inspire, Hal is the executive director of the MIT Leadership Center and a senior lecturer in the leadership and innovation at the MIT Sloan School of Management. Author of the book, The Innovation DNA, Mastering the 5 Skills of Disruptive Innovators. Be there as he uncovers the code for successful innovators in business and beyond. It's the GTS, a one-of-a-kind event, from the highly acclaimed recognition of Georgia's top 40 most innovative companies to the heralded recognition and exclusive induction ceremonies of yet another legendary member of the Technology Hall of Fame. The TAG GTS, it's its flagship event of the year, sure to be yet another sold-out celebration of Georgia's rapidly expanding and ever-so-successful technology community. Up to the Tech Talk, prepare to grasp how leaders find and ask the right questions, the ones that describe just how to interact with the world and beyond. As Tino speaks with Georgia Technology Summit 2015 special guest speaker, author, executive director, MIT Leadership Center, Hal Gregersen. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. TAG TV and TAG Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions.
Hal, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk today.
Glad to be with you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I hope you are as well.
I am.
We're really looking forward to you joining us for the Georgia Technology Summit on March 25th, and we'll get to a question on that later on. But I'd like to start out with, it's ironic that our Tech Talk format for nearly a decade has been all about challenging questions for our guests to better prepare and inform our technology community. And you've been studying questioning, impact, and leadership and innovation for more than 20 years, including your collaboration with Clayton Christensen on your best-selling book, The Innovators DNA, Mastering the 5 Skills of Disruptive Innovation. So why do you believe that questioning is so critical to today's leaders?
Well, to me, great leaders ask great questions, and these kinds of questions are ones that probe and poke at things people don't know they don't know. Now, as abstract as that may sound, every new idea, be it a new market growth idea or just a sustaining innovation or even an efficiency innovation, any sort of innovative idea emerges from a part of who we are that is the stuff we don't know. And the answers we're living today will not let us access that unknown space. And so we have to ask better questions. We have to, in fact, ask the right questions in order to, like a key unlocking a door, start unlocking a new perspective on whatever our challenges are.
And I suppose, in all of the interviewing and the study that you've done, it just seems to me from my vantage point as a CEO for a number of years, even in my own position, sometimes it's not that easy to ask questions because it shows that you don't know something. Do you see that a lot in terms of your...
Oh, absolutely. There is a deep emotional vulnerability around exposing ourselves to the fact that I don't know something. But the challenge is, in today's world where there is so much uncertainty and so much competitive work going on between companies and industries, CEOs cannot know everything.
Right.
And literally, I have to, as Hasso Plattner and some other CEOs of some major companies around the world, they literally wake up in the morning thinking to themselves, what am I wrong about today? Because, they know they're missing something, as opposed to the arrogance of believing that I've got it all figured out.
You know everything, right? So you have a new collaboration with relatively new with Professor Christensen that focuses on the CEO's dilemma. Could you take a minute to talk about what is the dilemma and how could it jeopardize the business if ignored?
Well, the dilemma is a little bit related to what we just visited on, which is it's the challenge of uncovering this blind spot. It's the innovator's blind spot. And the higher we go in a company, the more powerful the forces are that keep us from exploring that blind spot, this stuff we're unaware of. And so, think of the different forces operating on a CEO as simplistic as the decisions that a chief of staff makes about who gets in the office and who doesn't. And for many chiefs of staff, they work pretty hard at keeping people out of the CEO's office who might make her or him feel uncomfortable. They might ask an awkward question. They might raise a difficult issue. And this is the dilemma, is that the higher we go, there are a dozen or more forces that operate on us that almost make it impossible as a CEO to be vulnerable, to be open, and to be searching for these solutions by asking different questions.
Going back to the conversation around the culture of innovation and questioning, in your studies, do you see that a leader can utilize questioning to create a culture of innovation amongst his employees? I know, what I've read over the years, you look at countries like Japan, they seem like they're much more interested in filling the question box. I always used to read about that, but in the U.S. it seems like it's less of that.
There is a little bit less of that, but the longer a company exists, the higher probability that the questions get shut down. Yeah. It just comes with maturation. And so there's a great example to me that I know we're all not into the computer animation business, but Pixar is just phenomenal when it comes to asking questions. And I'll go back to Ed Catmull, one of the several co-founders of Pixar, and Ed's a scientist by training, and, he has this sense of, I'm always trying to figure out what's the cutting edge of something. And his whole life, and now Pixar's work, is all about doing projects, in this case films, that every one of them demand doing something different, new, technologically challenging. It's just something that's never been done before. And Ed Catmull has watched the world around him so carefully that he knew that as companies mature, and after they did their first animated film, computer-generated, he knew that if he wasn't careful and if his leaders around him weren't careful, they would fall into this demise of the question stopping. And so they literally, they wake up in the morning trying to figure out, what can we do to create a system, a culture that keeps the questions alive? And so you've got this place where people are hired with sort of this assumption they're going to be provoking and pushing. There are literal rooms and places, one's called the brain trust, where the expectation is you come into that room when you're critiquing a film, and you're going to have positive and negative feedback, and if you don't, you're just not doing your job. And you better deliver that brutal feedback without being brutal to people. That's a pretty high bar to be hopping over, but the expectation in that organization is everybody needs to be doing that, because what we're about is doing cutting-edge work that no one's done before. And if we're not asking the right questions, we're not going to be on that edge.
Well, I think this is a good segue into our summit, because we thought a lot about our theme. This is now our 11th year, and we'll sell it out with 1,500 people, and it's really one of the biggest events in the Southeast. And this theme, disruptive innovation, the power to inspire, the second piece to that I think is key, because over the years you've heard a lot about disruptive technologies and disruptive innovation, and it comes across as a negative. But in this day and age, it seems to me, and we know that you're all about this topic, so that there's an opportunity there to inspire and to build upon, if you're open, those new technologies. You have I'm sure some of your talk will be on that, but do you want to give a little preview in terms of your thoughts around that?
Well, what you've got, MIT for me is the most phenomenal landing spot for someone who does what I do. Because, we have as an organization this, not the motto, but we have a complete commitment to solving the world's most difficult challenges. And these are people here who research and study and try to figure out, what's the technology we can uncover, and how can we use that to make a difference? And, one of my colleagues, David Newman, she does all kinds of work in the aeronautics world, and, she's developed this super thin spacesuit that's not much thicker than a sweater. It comes from her deeply asking questions about how to create that. And, she said, my approach to the world, our work at MIT's approach to the world is we're infinitely curious. And we use that here to uncover technologies that then will change and solve the world's problems. And so, to me, there are certainly huge challenges on the face of planet Earth. And it's easy to be pessimistic and look at it that way, but my view is, like many of my colleagues here at MIT, my view is that, we use this technology and we use every innovative skill set we've got to solve problems that really matter.
And you walk your talk, obviously, because I was reading about this 424 project for nonprofit organizations to really get to asking better questions. Can you tell our audience a little about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it came from reading and observations where essentially in America, and it's not much different on the rest of the earth, frankly, but in the U.S., the average student sitting in a class for 1 hour a day for an entire month, so it's 4 weeks, 5 days a week, 1 hour a day in a class. The average student asks one question per month about the content of the class.
Wow.
And that's the same sort of dynamic. It's the same dynamic for a 6-year-old in first grade as it is for a 17-year-old as a senior in high school. And we all know that kids ask hundreds of questions before they go to school, and the contrasting data is the average teacher asks 50 to 100 questions per hour.
That doesn't surprise me.
And they give a student 1 second to answer the first question. If they don't get the answer, they give them a half of a second on average to answer the follow-up. Kids learn really quick. You better have the right answer, and you better have it fast, and that's what school is all about. And unfortunately, they then grow up, go into their workplace, and many organizations behave the same when it comes to answers and questions. So my commitment, and why I'm so obsessed with this issue of asking the right question, is how can we as adults help the next generation of kids keep their questions alive between the ages of 4 and 24 so that when they go to the work, they actually do ask the right questions and help change the world for the better. So one of the things I do personally, and I've done this with hundreds of people around the world and teams, is literally, got a challenge? Sit down at your computer, at your journal, write down the challenge quickly, set your timer, take 4 minutes, brainstorm nothing but questions about the issue. Don't answer them. Don't give preambles to them. Just write them down. The average number of questions I give is about 20 in a 4-minute period. It's great to do it alone. It's even better to do it with 2 or 3 other people. And at the end of doing that, there's an 80% chance that any of us will see our problem differently and start down a different path with it just by asking a bunch of questions about it. It's one way to help the kids do this and to do it better.
Well, hopefully those listening in picked up on that, because I think it applies to people of all ages. And if you're in your company, you take 4 minutes today and take the challenge. I imagine, too, Hal, that you would get better at that over time, that you could probably produce more questions once you've kind of gotten your mind thinking along those lines. Is there anything?
It's interesting. If there's a 4-minute limit on it, there is a bound.
Okay.
and it literally, I number them after the fact, and it's around 20, you know.
Okay.
But it's enough. It's enough to start down a different path.
Right. So time for one more question, and it relates to another passion that you have, as I understand it, in photography.
Mm-hmm.
And you recently led a leadership-focused photography workshop for Sam Abel, and who's a world-renowned National Geographic photographer. Can people become better leaders through photography?
My answer is absolutely. When I was young, I fell in love with photography, did it professionally for a while. I've come back to it now later in life, and Sam Abel, who's a great photographer, and I last year collaborated with a group of executives and essentially imagined 2 flip charts in the room. One is about insights about leadership. The other's on insights on questioning, insights on photography. I would teach them for an hour about how do you ask the right questions, for example. Sam would teach them how do you ask questions when you're taking pictures. We would go out and actually do it for a 3 or 4 hour block, come back, edit our images, and then show and talk about them. And what was amazing was by the end of those 3 days, all of us, including Sam and me, had a life-changing experience where we saw the world differently. We reframed the way in which we operated as leaders. It was powerful, and we're really excited. Santa Fe Photographic Workshops that sponsored this last year has now we're collaborating with MIT Executive Education, and in 2015 we're going to deliver 2 of these workshops in the spring and fall through MIT as well as Santa Fe Photographic Workshops. So it's really fun. It's good stuff.
That sounds great. And Hal, again, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk today, and also thanks for your commitment to the March 25th summit. For those listening in, make sure you get your tickets now because it will sell out, and I'm sure you'll want to hear some more insights from Hal and our other speakers. So, Hal, look forward to seeing you in March.
Delighted to be there. Thank you.